All right, so picture this.
Great.
You're driving home late at night, rural Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And a huge, hairy figure, like, darts across the road.
Oh, wow.
He's like straight out of a werewolf movie, right?
It's an image that, yeah, definitely captures the imagination.
It does, and for decades now.
Yeah.
Stories about this Beast of Bray Road
Right.
have been, like, sending shivers down the spines of Wisconsinites, you know?
I believe so, yeah.
But is it just a tall tale?
Yeah.
Or could there be something more to this legend?
Right.
Well, that's what we're going to try to find out today.
Okay. Yeah.
So what we have here is, like, this fascinating blend of eyewitness accounts,
Yeah.
local folklore, and even, like, some intriguing physical evidence that has kept this mystery alive for, like, nearly a century, right?
Long time.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, like, rewind the clock back to 1936.
Okay.
Our first stop is Elkhorn, Wisconsin, where a night watchman named Mark Shackleman reported a truly bizarre encounter.
Yeah, Shackleman's account is particularly interesting because it kind of sets the stage for many of the later reports, right?
Okay.
He described seeing this massive, muscular figure lurking near an ancient burial mound.
Wow.
And at first, he thought it was a dog, like on all fours, right?
Yeah.
But then it stood up, revealing this creature well over 6 feet tall, with a very distinct wolf-like head.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a creepy image.
Yeah, very much so.
But you mentioned this wasn't just like a one-off event.
No. The sightings continued, sporadically through the years, but they really seemed to like pick up in the 1980s and 90s, primarily centered around a stretch of road aptly named Bray Road.
Okay, so this is where things get really intriguing.
Yes.
Because we have multiple eyewitnesses from this era. People from all walks of life who reported seeing this creature.
Right.
One account that always sends chills down my spine is Lori and Drizzy's story.
Yes.
From 1989.
Right. So Indrizzi's encounter is often cited.
Okay.
Because she didn't just catch like a fleeting glimpse of something strange.
Right. Yeah.
She had this prolonged close-up view of this creature.
Yeah.
As she was driving home late one night.
And what's so fascinating to me is how certain she was about what she saw.
Right.
It wasn't just a case of mistaken identity. This wasn't a bear, a wolf, any animal she'd ever seen before.
Right.
This was something different.
Yeah.
Something unsettling.
Absolutely. And her account highlights some of the key characteristics that have come to define the Beast of Bray Road.
Okay.
A large humanoid form covered in dark fur, often described as being almost 7 feet tall.
Oh my gosh.
When standing upright, and with these piercing, glowing eyes.
Those glowing eyes. They are like a recurring theme.
Yes.
In so many of the encounters.
Yes, they are.
It's almost as if that detail, more than any other, like cements the creature in the realm of the supernatural.
It's definitely a detail that, captures the imagination.
It does.
And those glowing eyes have been reported as red, orange.
Right.
Like burning coals.
Right.
I mean,
imagine driving down a dark road and seeing that.
Oh, goodness.
It would be terrifying.
Yeah, I can barely imagine.
Yeah, I can barely imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so
you've
got a growing number of sightings.
A growing number of sightings.
But this is still,
small town
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Rumors can spread like wildfire.
Yes, they can.
I mean, is it possible that what we're seeing here is just a case of, like, mass hysteria?
That's certainly a possibility. I mean, we know that groupthink and confirmation bias can play a very powerful role in shaping our perceptions, right? Once a particular narrative takes hold, especially in a close-knit community like that, it can be very difficult to separate fact from fiction.
So how do we account for Scott Bray?
Okay.
A local farmer who reported seeing a similar creature on his property around the same time.
Well, Bray's account is interesting because it comes from someone who, knows that land, who is familiar with the local wildlife.
Right, exactly.
And who you would assume would be less susceptible to,
flights of fancy.
Flights of fancy, right?
Or tall tales,
Right, exactly.
And then we have Heather Bowie.
Okay.
A teenager who claimed to have been chased by the beast in 1990.
All right.
So that adds another layer of complexity to the story.
It does, because now we have an element of, perceived threat up until this point. Most of these encounters were, startling but not necessarily aggressive.
Right.
But Bowie's story introduces the idea that this creature might pose a direct danger to humans.
Yeah, it's one thing to catch, like, a glimpse of something strange in the woods.
Right.
But it's quite another to feel like you're being hunted by it.
Precisely. And that's where Linda Godfrey,
okay,
a local reporter for the Walworth County Week, enters our story.
Okay.
Initially, she was assigned to write this, simple debunking piece, lay the rumors of the Beast of Bray Road to rest.
Right.
But what she found was something far more compelling.
Yes.
Something that defied easy explanation.
Okay, so let's talk about Linda Godfrey.
Okay.
What was it about this story, about these encounters, that, like, drew her in?
Right.
And ultimately led her to devote years of her life to investigating the Beast of Bray Road.
Right. Well, Godfrey was a journalist.
Right.
So she approached the story with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Of course, yeah.
As you would expect.
You don't want to go in believing everything you hear.
Exactly. But she also, kept an open mind. Yeah. She didn't just dismiss these eyewitnesses as, like,
cooks or hoaxers or whatever.
Right.
She tracked them down, interviewed them, listened to their stories.
Yeah.
And what she found was a group of people who genuinely believed they had encountered something extraordinary.
And this wasn't just, like, a handful of people.
No, we're talking about dozens of reports.
Wow.
Many of them coming from, what you would consider credible witnesses, like Scott Bray.
Right, the farmer.
The farmer we mentioned earlier, exactly.
Yeah, and it's their certainty that really gets me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these weren't folks who were, like, out to make a quick buck off a tall tale.
Right.
These were people who seemed genuinely shaken, even traumatized by what they believed they'd seen,
Exactly, and that's what makes this story so fascinating.
Right.
It challenges us to consider this possibility that there might be more to our world than we can explain.
Right. More than science has been able to categorize and neatly define.
Yeah, it's that thrill of the unknown, right?
Yes.
That there might still be mysteries out there, creatures lurking in the shadows that we haven't been able to pin down.
Precisely. It taps into our, like, primal fear of the unknown, of what we can't control.
Right.
But it also speaks to our sense of wonder.
Yeah.
And our desire to believe in something beyond the ordinary.
Okay, so we've got these compelling eyewitness accounts.
Right.
But did Godfrey uncover any, like,
physical evidence?
Physical evidence, to support their claims.
Right.
What about those, like,
claw marks?
Claw marks on cars and those strange animal carcasses I've heard about.
Those are intriguing details. Yeah. And they were definitely part of what kept Godfrey digging. People reported finding these deep scratches on their vehicles.
Right.
The kind that couldn't be easily explained by a run-in with a deer.
Right.
Or, a stray branch or something like that.
Right.
And then there were the animal mutilations.
This is where it gets really creepy.
It does.
Yeah.
We're talking, livestock, deer.
Right.
Even smaller animals like raccoons and badgers.
Okay.
Found dead with strange wounds, often partially eaten or drained of blood.
And weren't there reports of organs being, like, surgically removed?
Yes.
I mean, that's not your average predator kill.
No, it's not. And these mutilations, they weren't just happening in Wisconsin.
Right.
Similar reports were coming in from all over the United States.
Oh, wow.
And even other parts of the world.
Really?
Which added another layer of mystery to the whole thing.
Did Godfrey find any connections between these animal mutilations and the beast sightings?
She did uncover some interesting coincidences.
Okay.
Remember how the beast sightings seemed to peak in the 1980s and 90s?
Right.
Well, according to some Elkhorn residents, that was also a time when there was a lot of talk about occult activity in the area.
Now that you mention it, I do remember reading something about that in Godfrey's book.
Okay.
She interviewed a local law enforcement officer who claimed that Walworth County, where Elkhorn is located, had a reputation for being, like, a hotbed for satanic rituals.
Exactly. And this is where the lines between, like, folklore, belief, and reality
it all starts
to blur. Yeah. Because if you believe in the supernatural, if you believe in the power of rituals and dark forces, then the idea of a creature like the Beast of Bray Road, a creature that seems to straddle the line between the animal and the human, the natural and the supernatural, Well, it doesn't seem quite so far-fetched, does it?
It's a chilling thought, for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's a connection between these alleged rituals and the manifestation of this creature.
Of course, we have to be careful.
We do.
Because we're venturing into territory that can be easily sensationalized.
Absolutely.
We have to remember that correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly. Just because these events were happening around the same time and place doesn't necessarily mean they're connected.
Right.
But it does raise some interesting questions about the power of belief.
Right.
And the ways in which our minds can influence our perception of reality.
Right.
If you believe that a creature like the Beast of Bray Road is real, if you're primed to see it, to interpret every rustle in the bushes as a sign of its presence, then you're more likely to see it, even if it's just your mind playing tricks on you.
So we're back to that idea of mass hysteria.
In a way, yes. But it's not just about people being gullible or easily swayed by rumors. It's about the very nature of belief. And the way it shapes our understanding of the world around us.
And what about the physical evidence? The claw marks, the animal mutilations. How do those fit into this?
That's where things get really tricky because...
While there were reports of these things, there was never any definitive proof that they were connected to the Beast of Bray Road. No DNA samples, no clear footprints, no photographs that couldn't be explained away as hoaxes or misinterpretations.
So we have this intriguing but inconclusive evidence, this convergence of folklore and real-world events. And yet the mystery remains.
It does.
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces. And we're left to wonder if those pieces even exist.
That's a great way to put it. And it's that very lack of resolution, that open-endedness that keeps us coming back to stories like this.
Yeah, we want answers.
We do.
We crave explanations. Sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that leave us with
more questions.
More questions than we started with.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned those glowing eyes. Remember how we talked about Ron Rice's encounter in 2020?
That was relatively recent.
It was.
And yet his description of the creature, the way it moves, the overall feeling of dread he experienced, it echoes those earlier accounts from the 1980s and 90s.
It's true. Rice's encounter is a good reminder that these stories, these legends, they have a way of persisting, of resurfacing, even when we think they've faded into obscurity. And there's a reason for that. These stories tap into something deep within us. Something that speaks to our fascination with the unknown, our fear of the dark, and our desire to believe that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be uncovered.
Absolutely. It's almost like a primal instinct, you know?
It absolutely is.
This draw towards the unexplainable.
And the Beast of Bray Road, with its blend of, like, animalistic descriptions and almost human-like behavior, it, like, perfectly embodies that primal fear.
It's interesting, though, how this story, while spooky, isn't necessarily about a monster that's out to cause harm. You know, like, there haven't been any reports of the beast attacking people. And some even describe it as being more, like, curious than anything else.
That's a good point. There's a sense in many of these encounters that the creature is just as startled by us as we are by it. You know what I mean? It makes you wonder if it's simply trying to exist to survive in a world that's rapidly encroaching on its natural habitat.
It's a perspective I hadn't really considered before. It shifts the narrative a little bit, doesn't it?
It does.
From monster to something perhaps even, like, sympathetic.
It does, and it speaks to a broader theme that often emerges in these, like, cryptid stories. This tension between humanity and the natural world, you know, as we continue to expand our footprint, to push further into wild spaces. We're bound to have encounters with creatures we don't understand. Creatures that challenge our assumptions about what's out there.
And that brings us back to you listening right now. Why should this matter to you? It's a story about a creature that may or may not exist in a place you may never visit.
Because it's about more than just a monster in the woods. The Beast of Bray Road, whether it's real or imagined, forces us to confront the limits of our own knowledge, to acknowledge that there are still mysteries in the world that science can't fully explain.
It reminds us to keep an open mind, but also to, like, think critically about the information we encounter.
Exactly. We have to be willing to question what we hear, to evaluate the evidence, and to form our own conclusions based on the available information. And sometimes that means accepting that there might not be a neat and tidy answer.
That sometimes the best we can do is keep searching, keep asking questions.
Yes.
Keep exploring the boundaries of what we think we know.
That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
The not knowing.
Right.
The possibility that there might be something more out there.
Yeah.
Just beyond the reach of our understanding.
Well said.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the mystery of the Beast of Bray Road, I'm left with one final question for you to ponder.
Okay.
If you were driving down a dark Wisconsin road tonight, what would it take to convince you that the legend was real? A fleeting glimpse of glowing eyes, a set of strange tracks in the mud, or maybe something more, something unexplainable. Whatever it might be, I hope this deep dive has inspired you to keep an open mind, to embrace the mystery, and to never stop exploring the unknown.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Beast of Bray Road.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.